Welcome to the show. We're fired up. We're ready to go.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? Thanks for having me here.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure. And I want to go back to something that you shared in your book as one of your defining moments. And that was that you got expelled from school at the age of 15. What on earth was happening in life at that point in time to lead to that?
So, 15 years of age, I was a troubled young man that was very angry with the world, that had a chip on his shoulder about why all of these things that were going wrong in my life weren't my fault and it was everybody else's fault. Blame, 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 take zero responsibility. My dad left when I was 13 years of age, and when a male figure walks out of your life, especially one as strict as my dad was, and you're naturally a rule breaker anyway, looking to, push the leverage of what you can get away with, all of a sudden I was able to make my own rules. And so from the ages of kind of 13 to 15, I became a out and out tearaway. And at school, your behavior in the street, your behavior at home, your behavior in school, they kind of all translate. And so having to go to school and have an authority figure that I didn't respect tell me how to act, how to think, where to go, that I was good or not good at lessons that I didn't enjoy or wasn't passionate about, really didn't sit too well with me. So I knew that, and I did everything within my power to disrupt. Yeah. As entrepreneurs do, we're natural disruptors. Regardless of the environments we get put into, we go in to disrupt, to break the rules, to push the boundaries, to see what we can get away with. That's the game. That's the fun. That's the enjoyment. And there wasn't one thing that I did. It was an accumulation of constant rule breaking with zero respect for authority that, time after time, exclusion after exclusion eventually leads to they've got nowhere else to take you but expel you from school.
When you mention that lack of a male role model figure in your life, I think that's something that society nowadays is almost starting to realize again how important it is. We've had this era of championing girls can do it as well as men and all that kind of stuff, which is relevant in so many sectors. But you look at so many people's stories, and the lack of a father figure can lead to those periods where they go off track. And if you look at what you've been capable across your lifetime, there's such a clear case that if you'd maybe had that guidance earlier, who knows what Joseph Valente would have unlocked at an even younger age as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's an absolute disaster, young men growing up without a father figure. I hate the fact that society is going the way that it's going, and so many young men don't have dads. They need them. And it's usually those young men that without mentors, without a father figure, an example of, what the right thing to do is, that they look for mentoring and that father figure in the streets. And they look for it in the streets, and they usually go to the older guys, just like I did. And if you're out in the streets, usually the people in the streets ain't the good guys. So you're getting the guidance from the wrong people, and the people that you look up to, they don't have dads either, so they've got no one to look up to. And so that's why so many young men get into trouble and go down the wrong path. Now, I was lucky that I was able to save myself, and every young man has that opportunity. And when I was expelled from school at the age of 15, I came out of the headmaster's office. I was with my mum. She was in tears. My mum is an amazing woman, and I had a lot of respect for her, even if I didn't show her it when I was a teenager. I loved her, so much. She was the best person in my life. But, I came out of school and she was really upset. She was crying, and she looked at me and she said, "Joseph, what are you going to do now? You're finished. You failed. That's it. Where are you going to go next?" And I remember looking back at my mum, and up until that point, everybody said I was the baddest kid around, and I wanted to be the baddest kid. I wanted to live what they said I was. And if you said you're bad, I said, okay, let me show you how bad I can be. That was my mindset. And I realized the only person getting hurt from that was me. The only person going down the wrong road was me. It was ultimately going to screw my life up. It wasn't going to screw theirs up. So when you hit rock bottom, and every young man at some point realizes that he's on his own, and the cavalry isn't coming, and that no one's coming to save him. When you realize that moment, in my opinion, that's when you become a man. And at 15 years of age, that's where I became a man. My dad was gone. My stepdad, I couldn't stand, I hated. And so it was me versus the world. And that's how I became very, very independent very quickly and learnt the skills and the approach and, all of those things that set me off on the path to go out and conquer the world. But as soon as I knew that everybody was gone, okay, that no one believed in me anymore, I had to tap into a choice that was either Joe, you go this way, you know what's waiting for you. You go this way, this is where the opportunities are. And thank God I chose to go down the right path.
It's a lot of responsibility to take on at such a young age, isn't it?
It is, but young men need to become men very, very quickly in certain scenarios. I am a big believer that you become a man really at 14. And, I like the old way of if you want to leave school at 14, leave school at 14 and go to work. I left home when I was 17. And, that was great for me because I got into my own place. I, had to fend for myself. And, the more that you can take on early, the more that you can get out of the security of your family and away from your mom and her doing the cooking and doing your washing and looking after you and, being in that comfortable scenario, the faster you're going to grow up. And the faster that you grow up, the more you're going to be able to take on out there because it's a tough, tough place.
Agreed. And I think you always hope that these circumstances aren't forced upon you. And we're talking there about the value of strong male role models and the strong family unit. But when those circumstances are thrust upon you, it's all about how you respond. And as you said, thank God that you took a path which has led to the man that I get to speak to now. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask about a particular individual at that point in time, and that's Darren Boardman. Yeah. And I want to understand what role he played in young Joseph getting onto the right path.
So Darren Boardman saved me really because he was a very well-respected guy in the local area. He was good looking, he was strong, he had a BMW, he had a beautiful girlfriend, and he was a plumber, and he was making money. And where we grew up in our town, every trades was, an ideal career. Trades is a fantastic career. And but back then it was, the tradespeople are going to be the wealthy guys. And so I knew I wasn't for university. I was never geared up for that. I wasn't a technology guy. I wasn't a finance guy. I was a practical guy. So I said, this is for me. So Darren became like my father. He was 10 years my senior and I respected him. And at 15 years of age, I went straight to work. As soon as I was expelled, I went to work with Darren for a year for free. I went every single day and throughout year 11. And throughout that period, he taught me how to become a plumber. So the deal was, Darren, I'll work for you for a year. You teach me all of the skills. And then when I turned 16, put me into college and start paying me. Of course, it was a great deal for him. And for me, I got to hang around with the coolest guy in the town. And so that leveled me up. I love spending time with him. And at the same time, I was, learning a great skill that has served me for many, 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 many years. So that one guy giving me that opportunity, believing in me, taking me under his wing, changed my life completely.
I think a term that you use so much in your content online nowadays is mentor.
Yeah.
And that's someone that you're being for that trade space now, that construction space now. But when you look at somebody's journey to where they maybe end up doing and what they end up choosing to have mastery in, it's really interesting when you see those kind of key markers along the journey where somebody found someone that was 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 steps ahead of them, and they could start to follow in that path. And it's easy for a 15-year-old to maybe join the dots between this guy's from my town, he's like me, he drives the car that I like, he lives a lifestyle that I want, and he's got mastery or excellence in a skill that I can see myself doing as well. Yeah. Otherwise, you maybe end up with role models that are, and nowadays it's really hard online when you maybe see somebody who's a million steps ahead of you or in another geography and you just can't relate, but you can see their success and it doesn't feel tangible. So it's great that you had someone that was almost within striking distance.
Absolutely. And I'd say to anybody listening to this, don't be afraid to ask. Every mentor that I've acquired, I've gone out and approached and I've hunted down and I've put myself in a position of submission to say, in a vulnerable position, will you help me? Will you do this? Will you do that? And people are afraid to ask, right? So they never get the opportunity. So go and ask. Some people are very willing to support you and to help you. And again, make it a no-brainer. If I'd have gone to him and said, listen, I need paying and, I'm never coming for free and so on and so forth. I always say when you have nothing, and at that point I had nothing, the one thing I do have to exchange with you is my time and hard work. Yeah. So people want everything handed to them. And there's been numerous times in my early years as an apprentice where to get a job, I had to work for free. And I would go there, I would do such a good job, I would bust my gut, and they would say, there's no way I'm getting rid of you, I'm definitely paying you now. And that got me a couple of jobs because I had a bit of an up and down apprenticeship journey, not through my skill or being a bad employee, but just various factors happen, some things happen with the businesses. So don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to put it all on the line to get an opportunity that you don't currently have.
Many of the guests I've interviewed over the last 3-4 years have spoken about these early times where they trade the commodity that they have, which is time,
Yeah.
to somebody who is wealthy or successful, who is desperate for time or resource.
Mhm.
So you swap that in order to get the expertise, and it turns into a value exchange, which actually works out really well for both of you, creates those win-win situations that we're all looking for in negotiations.
Absolutely. I love what you say about value exchange. I'm a big pusher of that message. It's value exchange. Any relationship has to have a value. I look at everybody in my life and I say, what value do you offer me? As savage as that might be, it's, are you providing me value? Yes or no. If you're not, then I don't need you around me. But vice versa, I need to provide them value or they won't be around me. And if you've ever been in a relationship or you've ever been in a partnership and that value exchange tilts the wrong way, then either they're going to get rid of you or you're going to get rid of them. And that's a personal one or a business one. And there's various scenarios in personal and business that I've had that. And as soon as I see that the value exchange, going the wrong way and I'm giving more than I'm getting back, I like to give more than I receive, but I don't like to be making a fool out of. So you've got to know when to cut the ties, but you've always got to provide value. And when you go to market as a young entrepreneur, as a young professional, as someone willing to build a business, your value proposition to the market must over deliver, and then you will get paid to deliver. Because, and there's this whole 29,000 pound Lamborghini concept. Don't know if you've heard it before, but if I had a Lamborghini parked in the car park and I said to you, it's 29,000 pounds, and you didn't have 29,000 pounds, you would go and do whatever you could to raise the 29,000. Why? Because the Lambo's worth 300. So if the value stack is so high, people will go and get the money, right? If I said, listen, I've got a Lamborghini in the car park and it's 280 and it costs you 300, you're not going to be motivated to go and get the 280. Yeah. So whatever value you put into a relationship, it's got to be equal. Whatever value you put to the marketplace to drive sales or win more business or create opportunity, then you can increase the value there for sure, outside of the 50-50.
It's a great point, especially for those that are still working within their own career space or in the early days of building your business. The value equation needs to make so much sense to the person that you're dealing with. And I always say this when I look at people a lot of guys that listen to the show are in sales like myself, and they sometimes think like, oh, my basic and my commission should be this because I'm bringing in Y revenue. But the revenue that you bring in as a sales guy needs to be astronomically times your salary and your commission in
Absolutely.
order to actually work out the value. And you see a lot of entitlement in particular in that space. I actually spoke to a gentleman called Benjamin Dennehy. I don't know if you've seen his stuff on LinkedIn. He's the UK's most hated sales trainer. And he really, really upsets people because he says that really good sales guys should almost be confident enough to work for commission only in the early days to prove themselves based on that. And I know you've got vast experience when it comes to sales and building sales teams too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think great salespeople, whether they have a basic or not, they're chasing the commission. I think you're absolutely right that they understand how to win business, but they don't understand gross margin. So they don't know what gross profit really is all about. And by the time you net your costs off and your overheads, what it really translates to on the bottom line. I was having a conversation with one of my sales women earlier, and she's done 200,000 this month in business. She smashed it, done an incredible job, and she wasn't acting entitled, or she wasn't, asking for more money. But great salespeople can change the dynamic. My experience in business, I build in most cases direct sales organizations. My plumbing and heating company was a national boiler installation business. It was $1 million a month in direct sales. There was 50 national salespeople. My training business does about $750,000 in training at the moment right now, with just a very small sales team, but the product order value is 15,000 minimum. So it's about 5 or 6 sales guys. But sales is a great career, and there's lots and lots of opportunity there. But they're great assets for business.
Yeah, undoubtedly so, and it really is the lifeblood. But as you say, sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what the actual contribution is, because by the time you've paid their salary, paid their car allowance, paid their national insurance, paid their commission, paid for them to sit that bum on the seat and make the calls, the outbounds, and go to their appointments, there are things that eat into these things, whereas sometimes people think like, oh, I've brought in Y revenue, I should be paid a much higher percentage of it. And even then, for you to deliver some of your training or your courses, of course, there's cost to equipment, or if it's an in-person one, there's cost to that as well. So working out that, yes, you may have done 200 grand of sales, but what is the actual profitability on that? And that's what you really look to get your payment from.
Absolutely.
Let's fast forward then to Impra of all things. What joins the dots between there and you being this kind of plumber apprentice that's trying to get himself on the right path?
So what I do in my life is I'm always chasing the next version of Joseph Valente, right? And I recommend everybody does this. I'm not looking for a label. I wasn't looking to be labeled Joe the plumber. And if you want to grow, if you want to unlock new levels, if you want to meet new people, if you want to make more money, if you want to go to nicer places, drive nicer cars, eat nicer food, dress with better clothes, you've got to grow, because every version of you is dependent on the information that you acquire. And so I live to chase. So I started as an apprentice. I became a qualified plumber. I became a gas engineer. I became a one-man band plumber. I became the CEO of the largest independent boiler installation company in the UK, and now with the largest training business of tradespeople in the UK. So the journey really is about me pushing for the next version of me, but what the next version, I suppose in my younger days, it was what the next version of finances could be unlocked by having more value that you can add to the marketplace. Because a CEO gets paid a lot more than a plumber does.
Yeah, and ultimately it's a crude measure stick, but it is a measure stick of the value you're delivering to the market on that basis. So if you're going from, I think you said before, like a 50 grand a year gas engineer to become the CEO of Impra and start your own company, you obviously are chasing something that's fiscally more meaningful.
Yeah, it's one thing that might sound really, really silly, but it's beyond the money, was when you're a tradesman, you go to work in dirty clothes, right? You get up in the morning and you put a dirty shirt on, and you put dirty workman trousers on with dirty work boots. And by the time you've got in your dirty van, by 10 o'clock, you've got dirty hands. And I look at me now, I'm dressed, I'm fresh, okay, I feel good, I'm clean. And as soon as you go from wearing those dirty works clothes to going one day in a shirt and trousers, I never wanted to go back to that again. I mean, I remember when I first started my business, I bought my first suit with the first loan I took out to start my company, £500. I never bought a suit before, this pinstripe Ted Baker suit, and I loved it. And I remember the day that I put it on, I knew that I wanted to get out of it as quickly as possible. And it took me from 22 years of age, buying my van, starting my company, to getting to $500,000 a year, and getting off the tools. It took me 2 years to do that. Now, we work with tradespeople and they come to us and they've been doing it 10, 20, 30 years and they're still on the tools. They still ain't worked out how to do it. So that was a big driver for me. Getting out the van and getting in a nice office, being out a nice coffee, just having heat. If you're a tradesman, you've been on site and you're watching this, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, if you're going out cold in the mornings, you'll know what I'm talking about. And, there's something about a shirt and trousers and shoes that just makes you feel good. And
you mentioned that when you were in your youth and you were looking up to the likes of Darren, for example, he was a tradesman and he was a businessman. Who did you maybe have to look to that was suited, booted that you maybe could aspire to as well?
Great question. Well, if we go back to when I was in much younger than 15, I lived with my mum, my dad, and my sister. My dad was an alcoholic, didn't work. He would drink 2, 3, 4 bottles of wine every night, get absolutely plastered every day, smoke like a chimney. Okay. And my mum worked very low paying jobs, but many of them to keep the family moving, to keep the finances in check. And in our household, money was always a worry. Every day, it was the stress of the house. And my dad made it worse by drinking all the money that my mum made. So it was even more of a struggle. And it was just horrible. And I remember as a kid just thinking, I can't stand this environment. I hate being here. I don't want this anymore. And I remember when I want something, I want it now. And if I want it, I'm going to have it. That's my mindset. I will go and get it. I don't care the circumstances. So I didn't like it as a kid. And I wasn't spoiled, but it was just my approach to say, why can't I have this, mum? Because we don't have the money, Joseph. Yeah, but why don't you? Because we don't have it. We can't get it. Okay, but why though? Yeah. And I could never get my head around this. Now, I had a very successful uncle. And he was my mum's brother. My dad's half Italian, family in Italy. My mum's English and family in England. Well, I had this uncle. He was 6'3", tall guy, confident guy, strong guy. He was an entrepreneur. He worked in corporate. And he was very wealthy. And he would come up in a brand new BMW, a brand new Mercedes, and in a brand new suit. And every time I saw him arrive, he would come twice a year to see us. And he was like a god to me. He'd come into the room. He'd be dressed sharp. Everywhere we went, he commanded respect. He had a wallet as thick as that, brand new stuff. And everywhere we went, he'd be like, Joseph, do you want this? Joseph, do you want that? You know, going from that day with him to all of the days of pain, everything we had in our house, our TV, our hi-fi, it all came from my uncle. So what I'm blessed to have had was somebody that was my blood, that was relatable, that showed me there was a different path. And I used to weigh this up and I'd say, how does my dad act like this? And how does my uncle act like this? What's the difference between these two men's thinking, style, attitude, approach to life? And at 4 years of age, I decided that I was going to be like that guy. And so the suit piece, the businessman piece, was ingrained in me from a very, very young age. Darren wasn't a suit guy. Darren was a trades guy building a business, but outside of that, he was a smart dressed guy, nice BMW. But my uncle was the suit guy.
It's interesting when I read that in your book, that 4-year-old mindset piece where you were starting to identify the kind of choices you want to make. It's remarkable how much those images and those aspirations imprint themselves on you for such a long period, and it's what you chase after. And straight away you can see that, yes, you looked up to Darren because of the business he's built, but that thing in the back of your head about wearing the suit like your uncle, having the abundance, not being worried about money, being able to pay your own way, and probably provide for your mum in some sense, which I know is a big value of yours. It's amazing how these things stay with us and they remain a driver long after maybe that tangible memory is gone. It's still sat back there and it's still pushing you forward.
Yeah, I think so. That's definitely ingrained in me. I associated that as the solution to all of our problems. And I remember just being so passionate about never wanting my family to struggle in the same way. I hate it when people have to struggle with money, because I don't think money's hard to get. And I don't mean that arrogantly. I just mean that people that don't know how to get it haven't spent the time or had the mentors to teach them how. But there is plenty of it out there. It comes down to the skills that you can offer into the marketplace to be able to acquire it. And money doesn't make you happy, but it will allow you to do things for other people that will make you happy, because there's nothing more selfish than helping others. And if I can give you one great feeling to chase, it's put yourself into a position of abundance where you can take care of all of your loved ones, because that's one of the things that I've been able to do, to protect them, to look after them, to put my mum into retirement when I was 27 years of age, to pay her mortgage, and to keep giving her money and look after her and pay for it to go on holidays. It's a great feeling. Now, do I like to drive a Lamborghini? Yes. Do I like to put my mum into retirement? Absolutely. Which one gives me the better feeling, putting my mum into retirement?
It's important to realize that. And I think that traditional male provider piece is certainly something that you have as a value that you can see it being reinforced throughout your career and your life?
Yeah. It was the number one reason I started my first business. I went to war on that company, mostly for my mum. And I remember there's days in business as an entrepreneur, and especially if you're growing a company, where I remember some of the early days. I was building this plumbing company. When I say I was working 100 hours a week, there's online businesses and there's construction ones. Building a construction company is rough. Okay, you've got engineers, you're working in people's houses, you've got materials, you've got logistics, you've got sales, marketing, invoicing. You're running like 3 businesses in one business, right? It's a rough game. And we used to be out 100 hours a week, and I was running myself into the ground, not eating, not going to the gym, sacrificing so much. And it was the days where I wanted to quit that I remember why I'd started. Wanting to get to a position where I could financially look after my mum was a big motivator. And it's quite strange because there needs to be purpose to do great things. If it's no purpose, you'll never do great things. But also, when a purpose get achieved, let me tell you, you've got to find a new one. Because I remember at 27, 28, I did it. And I almost felt a little bit lost. I was like, wow, well, I've done the bit. Now it's just
It's
about
gold medal
me again.
syndrome.
It's just about
You get it with
making more
athletes all
money.
the time. The
And
Olympian wins the gold medal, and for the next 3-4 years, he's completely lost because that's what he's worked towards for that whole time. And it's the same for business guys. A lot of founders, when they sell out and they get maybe a dream exit, they end up lost, depressed. They need to find the next thing, and it's so common. And I completely agree. You need to reevaluate what that purpose and that goal is the whole time. But I want to go to those early days, and I want to talk about your sales and business development approach when it came to growing Impra. You mentioned you bought a suit. And one of the things that made me laugh out loud when I heard about it was that you were going around the high street in this suit trying to generate business. What was happening?
So what I did was I did the same thing that every tradesman does. And I started a business, bought some business cards, got a van, got some tools, and then sat in my van on Monday morning at 9 o'clock, looked at my phone and it wasn't ringing. And I thought, hang on, I've just quit my job, took out a £15,000 loan, and I've got no jobs booked in. This is what everybody else does. So why isn't my phone ringing? And then I learned very, very quickly that business doesn't grow on word of mouth overnight. It might take 20 years. And in actual fact, businesses that grow need leads and they need sales. And so I said to myself, right, okay, well, I'm not here to work one job a day or a couple of jobs a week. I want to grow fast. So where am I going to get some customers? At the time, I've spent millions of pounds on marketing. I've done tens of millions in sales now. But back then, I hadn't done any of that. So I didn't know about marketing. I didn't really know what it was. And I didn't really know how to sell. I've always been a hustler because I've had to find my own money. So I was always a good street hustler, a playground hustler. I was always able to sell stuff, but I was never, trained in it. But I thought to myself, right, and again, looking at mentors, I remember a documentary from a guy called Charlie Mullins. He was the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, one of London's biggest plumbing firms. And he's a good friend of mine now. He's 70 and he's worth 9 figures. He sold Pimlico for 140 million. And back then, in 2007, I saw this documentary when I was still a gas engineer. And he said, the way to win in business in construction is to build a brand. It's not to be perceived as this dirty tradesman that shows up late, unorganized, and so on. Now, I remember in the high street in Peterborough, all the estate agents was. I'd seen these dirty work trades vans and paper all over their desk. But I thought, I can't go and knock on someone's door, and say, do you want a boiler fixing, right? I need to get to people that have got lots and lots of jobs. Well, social housing, there was too much red tape. Government contracts, too much red tape. But the property management company is independent. So I went and bought a £500 suit. I bought a briefcase and I bought one of those black umbrellas with the bent wooden handle. So I just looked posh. So I looked like a suave businessman. I took my briefcase with no papers in it. I held the umbrella in the other hand and I literally bust into all of these estate agents pitching as soon as I walked in. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just full of ambition. Hi, I'm Joseph Valente from Impra. I remember walking into the estate agents and everybody just looking at me. The guy's coming in dressed like a city banker. And then all of a sudden I start talking about plumbing and heating services. So I hit every single high street shop with the same pitch. Hi, I'm Joseph Valente from Impra. We offer service, breakdown and repair. If you need anything doing within 24 hours, we'll be there. Have you got any jobs that we can do for you today? I hit 50 estate agents. Every single one of them either kicked me out or took my card and said that they were going to ring me back. And I got back in my van at the end of that day feeling really deflated. And I said, damn, I thought that was going to work. Yeah. And because I went in there knowing that they would never have going to seen anybody like me. And at 22 years of age, I hadn't been in business long, so I looked very, very young anyway. And I was pretty slick in my suit. I didn't look like your trades guy. But I remember going in there and I learned one of the best lessons, okay, I could have ever learned in business. And I remember looking at their eyes and they were looking at me, who the hell is this guy? Yeah. And that is something, okay, that I've taken throughout my career to create the shock factor. When I get the eyes of people looking back at me and they're not sure what they're looking at, I know that I've created an edge. They don't quite understand, but they know there's something there. And
You've
so I don't want to
differentiated. It's so key. You've differentiated. It's vital because everyone else is going in their worky gear.
Differentiated, absolutely. Showed them something else. But when you differentiate in a marketplace and people are so used to one type of character, don't expect them to suddenly buy into the new process or the new character. They won't be familiar. So what have you got to do? What does every salesman need to do?
Build trust.
Build trust, be persistent. Yeah. So what I did is I waited until Friday. I changed my shirt. I didn't buy another suit. I changed my shirt and I went back again. And do you know how hard this was? Because I knew that I was going to get rejected. After 50 rejections, to go back again at the end of the week was going to be tough. I'd only just seen these people, right? And I didn't really have anything different to say. So I went back in there and I just walked in and they looked at me like, what's he doing back here? And I remember going in and I said, hey, how you doing? Just checking to see if any of your plumbers have called in sick or you need anything doing or any new jobs have come in. And they all looked at me and they said, we told you that we would call you. Don't come back here again. We're all very, very busy. If we need you, we'll call you. Rejection, rejection, rejection. I got to the 30th one and they said, you're back. Blimey, you are the smartest dressed plumber we have ever seen. You walked in and we thought, who the hell is this guy? He can't be real. He's coming here dressed like this, speaking like he's speaking, and we've never seen anything like it. Thank God you've come back, Joseph. We really need a gas engineer. We needed you the other day, but we didn't know who you were. So we didn't know, like, or trust you because we needed to see you again. When can you start? And that was Woodcock Homes, my first big win. I ended up getting an office above those estate agents. And that day, I won a contract for 600 homes. They said to me, I've got 30 jobs waiting for you. I went home, got out of my suit and went to work straight away. And every day, I got 30 jobs. But on the way back, I thought, I'm going to try my luck. I hit one more estate agents before I went home. And guess what? The second one walked in. What are you doing back? We literally thought, who the hell is this guy? We needed you on Tuesday, but we didn't want to ask you because we weren't sure who you are. We need you right now. When can you start? Well, just so happens I'm going home to get into my work gear. I'm going to start today. I think I worked till 12 o'clock that night. And then every day it was 6 till 6, 7 days a week. And I tapped into this estate agency stream of work that was never ending and didn't cost me any money. So it allowed me to scale my business. I hired my first employee within a week. My first plumber within a month, had my first office within 3 months, I had my first 3 plumbers within 6 months, and the business just grew very, very quickly.
But it all starts with that kind of guerrilla marketing, just grafting and putting yourself out there to face the rejection.
Yeah.
And as you say, if you look at the percentage conversion there, it's not good.
Yeah.
But guess what? All it needed was one or two to put their faith in you and you to get the ball rolling. And then thereafter, you fell back on your expertise and mastery as a plumber, and you fell back on your energy and this kind of relentless, like, how that you had in order to do the why and just keep pushing to get to where you got to.
Absolutely. And you're right on the conversion piece. And in sales, I only like to work on something that's worth chasing. Yeah. Small ticket sales, I'm not interested in. I like to sell big ticket, big margin, because the fact is the conversion rate's the conversion rate, and selling small ticket is no easier than selling big ticket. So there's got to be enough skin in the game. And I think many businesses try and grow sales without understanding the order value or the size of their product. And in actual fact, scaling small ticket's not profitable. I found that out throughout my plumbing journey as I tried to grow this maintenance business. It had to evolve. We had to sell different products, bigger ticket, bigger margin. But you've got to be willing to put yourself out there. And as a business owner, whether you like selling or you don't, you will always be the best salesperson. Now, we train thousands of businesses, not just in construction, in all sectors. And you know what? If I have a room full of 500 businesses, I'll say to them, who in here is uncomfortable with sales? 480 will raise their hands. And I will say, but you all do realize that the number one skill you need in business is selling. It is the most important skill. And if you're watching this and you want to be successful in anything you do, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur, you know, you want to build your own company, you want to work in a company, you want to get investment, okay, you want to have a partner, you got everything sales. You got to sell people on your vision, your dreams, your goals, why they should work for you, why they should give you money, why they should give you credit. So learning sales will allow you to unlock so much more. But it's the one skill that I call the never go broke skill. Yeah, because if you can sell when you're good at it, you will always make 6 figures. If you're really good at it, you'll make 7. And if you're a badass, you'll make 8.
Yeah, special, mate. It's so important to realize. And I think anyone that has ambitions for their own business, being able to communicate and bring people on that journey with you and buy into it is so key. And that is sales skills at the end of the day. So as you say, you're probably always going to be the best salesperson in your business because you're going to truly understand what it does, why you do it, and what it truly means.
Absolutely. And look, you know, in the first period, you got to sell to get off the ground. I don't do the sales anymore on a ground-to-ground level. We've got an event going on here right now. There is 25 businesses there. There's 5 consultants we have here employed. We'll do 150 grand in that room today. And I won't go in there and sell. I won't be part of the event. And you don't want to be in the driving seat with sales forever. You need to sell and then you need to move back to central. And that's the whole point of hiring people. But in the beginning, you are the one. Most businesses fail because they underappreciate what it takes to get customers. People develop a great product. I mean, how many people start a gym and then they open a restaurant? And then they don't know that they've got to get people in. They think just opening the doors, suddenly someone's going to drive into an industrial estate and come to your gym. Or they're going to come on the high street and pick your restaurant. The amount of money it takes to get the front end cultivated and moving is significant. And that's why I think it's really important to pick business models that actually have the opportunity associated to the product to spend on the marketing. Because some of these small ticket businesses, like let's say you're a hairdressing business, right? To get people into your shop, it's going to cost you money. But if you're selling a haircut for 10 quid, how much can you afford to spend on acquiring that customer? You can't afford to spend 10 and you'll be at a loss. If that customer never comes back and you've got no reoccurring revenue, then you're going to be, break even at best. So you need a ticket. Like it costs us at the moment, right? Our tickets are 50. Our minimum product's 15 grand. It costs us about 1,500 to acquire a sale in our business right now. Yeah, from a marketing spend only, it's 1,500 we've got to spend to get them leads through the system, through the events to acquire a customer. If my product was $1,000, I couldn't afford to spend 1,500 on it. And in business, the more that you spend on marketing is to win in business. It's who can spend the most on marketing wins. That's it. It's a game of who can spend. Yeah. It's not a game of who can make sales without marketing spend, because that's finite. If you can continue to chuck money at the problem, I can beat the competition just by drowning you out. British Gas did it to me. They buried me when I was a national business because they could spend way more. And I didn't have any follow-on products to justify the increased cost per acquisition. Anyway, I'm going off track a little bit here. So
No,
just rein me
honestly,
back in. But
yeah, Joseph, love those insights. I think that's so valuable. But in terms of your story, I would love to understand how The Apprentice came about and you ended up going on the show.
Okay, good. So I started my business because of Lord Sugar. Yeah, at 22 years of age, I came back from Australia and I got back into my same gas engineer job. I was really depressed, demotivated, and I was hunting for this new thing. I didn't want to know I was going to be an entrepreneur. I'd always watched The Apprentice. I'd always been passionate about it. My mum got me Lord Sugar's autobiography. Big, thick book. What you see is what you get. Highly recommend it. It changed my life. Over Christmas 2011, okay, I read this book back to back, and it changed my DNA. I saw how this entrepreneur came from a broke family and was able to build billion-dollar wealth. And reading through the book, I thought, this guy's got nothing that I haven't got. What's he got that I haven't? He was broke, I'm broke, right? I wasn't broke then, but, I came from broke. Okay,
It's
so
another role model figure that you can reach in the same way you could reach towards Darren, in the same way you could reach towards your
absolutely,
uncle. It was somebody else who you could relate to
yeah,
and join the dots.
yeah, absolutely. It was familiarity, yeah, because up until that point, how many people make it? Oh, I can't be like Joseph. He won the Apprentice. He had Lord Sugar. He got 250 grand. It's all right for him. Everybody makes these excuses up, right? And they try to put a reason why they can't achieve because you've had something that they can't possibly get. And I was that guy. I'd been to private school. He'd come from a different family. You know, his dad was there. He must have wealth. These are all the reasons that I can't be a multi billionaire. Yeah. That's what I used to say. Then Lord Sugar's book, it grounded me. I said, hang on, if he can do it, I can do it. So then I quit my job, took out a 15 grand loan. Anyway, fast forward the 3 years. January the 9th, 2015, my business was doing 600-700 grand a year. Okay, I had a few plumbers working for me. I had a nice car, beautiful girlfriend, nice house, you know, dressed well. I had all the nice stuff any 25-year-old would want. Yeah. And around the town, I was the guy. I'd leveled up. You know, I was out in the town, in the nightclubs and the bars, and I was the man. Or at least I felt like I was. And but I was miserable, absolutely miserable, because I was working 7 days a week. I managed 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday night to go and splash my cash around. Okay, but the rest of the time I was working like a maniac. I had no systems, no processes, and it was crushing me. And I believe results go where energy flows. If you focus on the solution, the universe will send you a gift. I'm a big law of attraction guy. I used to vision working with Lord Sugar. I really believed I was going to be on The Apprentice one day. All the years I watched it before, that compound attracted it into my world. And January the 9th, 2015, I came home, I had a really shitty day. I was really pissed off. I was sick of my business. I wanted out. I wanted to do something else. I couldn't be bothered with the pressure anymore. And the money was almost becoming buy to the pressure. And I said to myself, something needs to change. Anyway, I got my iPhone out. It was probably an iPhone 4 or 5 back then. Okay. And Lord Sugar's page came up on Facebook. Final call, 24 hours to apply. And no joke, I promise you when I say this, at that moment, I knew the universe had sent me a sign. And the sign was, you are going to win. This is your way out. And I believed it. And I filled out the form, hoping that I wasn't fucking crazy and that these dots were going to connect.
I've seen tweets from you from 2013 where you're talking about meeting Lord Sugar and thanking him.
Yeah.
That is almost 2 years, 18 months ahead of you even applying. Why was that in your head?
I used to tweet him all the time. I don't want to sound like a major fanboy, but I was obsessed with the guy. Yeah, he was my guy. I thought he was a badass. Like, if you're going to be anyone, you want to be Lord Sugar. He was my guy. I liked him. He was savage. He was ruthless. He was successful. He was an out and out business guy. He was tough. He bossed the boardroom. He took no shit. You know, I liked his style. Now, I like a Richard Branson. But Sugar's style for me was harder, and I like hard business. I don't like to fuck around. I enjoy being hard in business, right? So he was my guy. And I just used to tweet him. Again, I knew what the law of attraction was. I'm not unconscious competent. I am conscious competent. Yeah, there's been times where I've been unconscious competent, which for anybody that doesn't know what it means you can do stuff successfully, but you don't know how you're doing it. So you get success, but you feel like you're winging it because you haven't analyzed why you're good or why you're not good. Yeah. Now I measure everything, and I've got such a track record of success and failure that I know where I've been at, where my mindset was, and what attracted or pushed away those success elements to my life. And I knew I was law of attraction him into my life. I mean, I didn't know how well it was going to work. I'm going to be honest there, but I knew if I followed the process and I put my faith in God, I put my faith in the universe, that the dots would connect for me, and they just so happened to. And then 3 years later, that same billionaire bought half of my company for 250 grand and became my business partner after taking out a 15 grand loan off the back of reading his book. So it's a pretty
It's
cool
crazy.
story.
It is crazy. How do you reflect on that period of winning The Apprentice then?
It was wild. It was exhilarating. It was it was amazing. It was the best experience of my life. It was as high as I could climb in the competition world of business, because there's no other accolade to go for that's like on a national level. To be on a national TV show, to be this expelled from school plumber, to go in and boss the Apprentice and win it, and have a billionaire as your business partner, beating 60,000 candidates. Like, that was my shot. That was my Premier League. It was my heavyweight title. It was my win. It was my way to leave a mark, to say, I'm the best of the fucking best. Out of this competition, I am number one. That feeling was insane. But it was also bittersweet, because you mentioned it earlier, and that is when you put your heart and soul into winning and you win, and then the curtains close, the crowd stops cheering, and then you have to go back to silence. That's a strange, these superstar artists. They come off the stage and then no one's cheering their name. Eminem talks about it all the time, right? And how does he get that feeling again? The footballers that lose the glory of the stadium, and then all of a sudden they just retired and they got no one cheering their name anymore. It's a strange feeling. And then you chase that buzz. And I went into a place where I needed to feel that good again. And so I'm launching books, I'm winning awards, I'm scaling my business at a mad rate, at a crazy rate, just to push how far I can go. What have I got that I'm capable of? How big can I take this? I needed to feel tested. And maybe that swayed my decision making and clouded my judgment in many, many areas, and took me off track and off focus. But, I'm still chasing to this day. And but I'm chasing in a different way. But I think that you've got to have something to chase. But man, any 25-year-old entrepreneur that, loved business, dressing well, wanted money, wanted attention, wanted all the great things in life, it was a gift from God.
That was the peak Apprentice period as well. Nobody relates to the show in the same way now. It's not taken as seriously. It's not as loved. It's not as engaged with, in terms of the viewing figures, for starters, but also like what that meant back then. And equally, you were one of the first ones where he actually invested in the business rather than maybe like starting something from scratch as well.
Yeah.
I guess that must have felt even more like validation of what you were building.
Yeah, I think you made a great point. And I always just joke, the series went downhill after mine. But it was peak. Those couple of years around then. I'd say mine and a couple of years before, Mark Wright's and Leah's, that was kind of the peak. And then it did start to lose. I think the lady that won after me, Alana, she's a nice girl, but it wasn't, she wasn't business hungry. And then it kind of just changed and changed and changed. And now it's, not worth watching, I would say. No disrespect to the candidates on there, but it just, Georgia making jokes. It ain't the vibe what it was. I remember watching it as it actually inspired me to be a businessman. So I want people to watch it, to be inspired and think this is serious. You don't want everybody talk. I mean, there's okay fucking up a task, but not these guys are absolute idiots. What the hell is this? Because there was
more of an entertainment program now.
Say that again.
It's more entertainment now than it is business.
It's a shame how it's gone. It is. But, we've got to do something about it. I'm on a mission to do something about it. I've got my own business show on YouTube called Unfinished Business. It's like a weekly vlog. And I intend to get back on TV in the next couple of years with a really, really solid business show. I want to do a few more things in my business first. And I'd like to get a big exit under my belt, probably. That would be quite nice from a credibility point of view. But I want to definitely do something in the realm, because I think there's so many. What is the UK doing right now to inspire entrepreneurs? Where do they look? Dragon's Den is probably the only show now that takes business really seriously. And that's got more of an entertainment factor to it, but they're still business guys, aren't they? They're talking about business and pitching and numbers and profit and sales and margin and all that stuff.
Agreed. What was it like working alongside him?
Fun. No, I'm joking. It wasn't really. It wasn't fun at all. It was savage is probably the best way to put it. I mean, Lord Sugar is Lord Sugar. There is no character. Yeah. When you meet him, he's exactly how he is on TV. I didn't know how to handle him to begin with. Yeah. Because I've never met someone so tough. I mean, that just has that can say to you, sit down, don't even look you in the eye. just with that complete level of almost disrespect. It's like, sit down, don't speak to me. I'm not shaking your hand. Get on with it. Sit down. What the fuck do you think you're talking about? I'd had no one speaking to me like that in my life, and I'd never experienced this boardroom thing, so I was humbled pretty quickly. But the first boardroom I went into, he was sat at the end of the thing on a chair like this, facing the wall. And I walked up to him. I said, "Hi, Lord Sugar, how you doing? Great, looking forward to this board meeting." He said, "Sit down," and didn't even look me in the face. And I was like, "Whoa, this is like the first board meeting." I thought at least he'd be nice to me on the first one, but it's just not in his temperament. It's just his character. And I enjoyed it. I'm not going to pretend. I mean, after a while, I just got very, very used to it. His finance guy said to me, "Listen, Joseph, I've worked here for 35 years. For the first 7 days, I was a young man, okay, coming in. And I used to say to him, 'Good morning, Lord Sugar.' He'd have his paper up in front of his face and he wouldn't even drop it. 7 days of being ignored. I've never said hello to him again, okay? And I wouldn't recommend that you start now, that you do either." So I was like, right, this is the guy I'm dealing with. And that allowed me to understand his approach. He gave me a ruthless streak that I have now, and I can operate in the same way. And sometimes in business, you've got to be blunt, and there is time for no discussion. Ben Francis from Gymshark said a really good statement, and it was, for the first 0 to 10 million, there's no discussion. People want to put their opinions in. The CEO knows what needs to happen, and it's fucking listen to my way. We're going to get there. Then when it's big enough, there's time and processes and procedures to discuss and build beyond that. But first and foremost, it's the main man's vision, and you've got to follow that through. His team was strong. They gave me a lot of financial advice around the company and finances and numbers, but they didn't give me much construction, service, plumbing company advice because they'd never run one. So this is why we're so successful at Trade Mastermind, is because we know construction. The team that I brought here are my Impra team, right? My top team at Impra. So everybody that's part of the business, they helped me. They'd been with me for 5-6 years at Impra, from this little local plumbing company to this big national beast. So everybody's tapped into that blueprint, and it worked for solar, boilers, construction, and they know we know the trade, the sector inside out. So it's easy to teach a blueprint when you know the blueprint. It's hard to be a mentor when you don't know the sector. You can teach some stuff, yeah, but you can't teach it all. So my recommendation to everybody looking for a mentor or a coach is to find someone that's been in your field or is in the field that you want to get into. A general business mentor will take you so far, but they won't be able to give you the hacks, the fast tracks, the blueprints, the cheat codes that can take 10, 20, 30 years to learn in an industry.
Huge point, isn't it? And like you say, there's maybe like general business advice they can give you when it comes to finance, forecasting, and all these different areas. But ultimately, when it comes to the expertise within the industry, it's nice to have somebody that's walked that same path and knows what it's like in those shoes and can relate. And I guess from that perspective, you chose to exit from having Lord Sugar in the business and actually bought back your business from him. What was driving that?
Basically, 2 years had gone by. I was showing up to every board meeting and they were saying, right, what's happening with the business? And it went very quickly from us are here to help you to you're telling us what is happening. And there was no advice they could give me. And it was Lord Sugar and 3 accountants. They're all finance guys. They dress it up like you're going to get this whole strategic team. And all I got was some accountants. His loyal accountants that have been with him for 20, 30 years that basically wanted to catch me doing stuff wrong so they could report back to him so he could give me a bollocking in the boardroom. The dynamic was skewed and I'm not one to stay quiet. I didn't like it. So I said to them, listen, I haven't come here for this. It's been 2 years now and I want to fucking scale up. I want to grow quick. I'm not here to mess around and I'm definitely not here to run £1 million business. I want £100 million business. And there was, no, you need to take it slow, blah, 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 blah. Right? And they might well have been right, but 27-year-old Joe did not want to listen. Yeah, 27-year-old Joe was willing to go fucking broke, yeah, and put it all on the line for the chance to become a 100 millionaire. Now, I said to Lord Sugar, listen, I want to go national. I can tell that you're afraid of failing here, and you don't want this to be on your record if it goes wrong. But I don't mind, because I will take that on my shoulders, but I've got to get out of this relationship if I'm going to get there. So if you don't want to be in business with me anymore, or you want me to take on the risk, let me buy you out in 48 hours. He came back, and do you know what he said to me, actually? He said, Joseph, you know what? No one's ever spoken to me like that before. Complete respect. I'll come back to you. In 48 hours, he came back with a good offer, a clean deal, and he let me get out very, very quickly. Now, was that the right move is the question. That's the answer that I can't provide. But what I can say is I've got fucking balls of steel. And if you want to be successful, you've got to have balls of steel. You've got to be willing to take the risk, okay? I had to go back to the marketplace and back to my company and say, 2 years has gone by, I'm the first apprentice to be out. Hit the nationals, ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. I drove that. And, all of a sudden people are starting to think, why is he out? What's going on? Ba-bum. But I'm willing to take it. I don't need, people to tell me how to lead. And I don't need partners. I'm strong enough to make my own calls and my own decisions. I'm the guy. And you got to be the guy, and you got to back yourself in certain scenarios. Whether I got it right or got it wrong, at the time, if we just chuck some turnover numbers up in, we were doing $1 million a year. By the time when I got him out with Lloyd Sugar, we were doing $1 million a year in 2017. By 2019, we were doing $1 million a month. And I'd gone from a regional business to a national company operating in every major city in the UK. Now, that business, unfortunately, grew very, very quickly. We used all of our cash to get there. 2019, end of 2019, we won National Installer of the Year. 2 months later, the market changed. Winter was a lot warmer. Leads weren't landing. Brexit was happening. And my sales guys couldn't sell anything, right? There was no business coming in. Now, when
I've heard you say before you expanded so fast as well that there were certain cities that you didn't have the same expertise as you had in, like London, Peterborough, down south. And so you didn't have that same level of like, this is something I can really put my stamp on.
It was more about some of the cities couldn't generate the volume of inquiries that we needed because it was a very simple business model. 100 leads a town, put in a sales guy, convert 30 boilers, put in 2 engineers and run. Yeah, it was super simple. So it grew quick because it's a simple business. But when the leads stopped, we had to do 100 grand a day to break even of new business, new boilers. Yeah, for anyone watching this, has a lot of frigging boilers to sell across the UK. And so it was a super high pressure environment. I mean, when I tell you I'd taken on, I probably bit off more than I could chew in that time I had. Yeah. And that business failed. And I had to sell part of the business. I had to shut part of the business down. I made sure all of my staff kept their jobs. I sold it to this recovery company that could come in and buy quick. I made sure all of my staff kept their jobs. I sold the brand, the assets, all of the contracts and the warranties were taken by this new business. But I had to liquidate the business with a few £1 million worth of debt in it. And that came back on my name. And I went through this savage period of, it's kind of a success because it's sold, but it didn't sell for that much. But because there's a liquidation, it's also seen as a failure and you owe loads of people money and blah, 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 blah. But the thing that I will say is that we never screwed anybody. No one lost money because we did anything wrong. We were investigated by the insolvency service for 2 years. And that's what happens. Whenever you put a business into liquidation, the insolvency service will do their due diligence. They put in the liquidators, they check all your books, all of your procedures, and they're looking for something called wrongful trading. Yeah? Did you screw people and siphon all the money out? Well, we passed the investigation with flying colours. And I wasn't expelled as a director because, when you go through that period and everything starts to happen, do you know how much stuff came online about me? People saying
people cast aspersions on your name. They do, don't they?
It was savage. I mean, people were saying I was a crook. I stole the money. I was, all of these horrible, horrible things, right, that weren't true. And I said to every one of my creditors, because when your business goes down and the business owes people money, you have to sit in a room with these creditors. So 30, 40 businesses showed up. And I had to sit at a table like this with a lawyer and my other director. And everybody gets to ask you questions. Where's our money gone? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And I addressed everyone in the room. I said, before we start, there's one thing I told you all. Doing business with me was going to be fast, but it was going to be at a risk. Okay? So if you gave us credit, because the majority of the money owed was supplier credit. They'd offered too much credit. They'd given more credit than they should have given. Yeah. So basically, I said to them, you knew we were going to grow. You're happy to give credit when things were going well, but now when it's going down, you want to make me the bad guy. But business is a risk. We didn't do anything wrong. It's not me having taken your money. And some of them understood that, and some of them just couldn't see through the pain of them losing the money, which I completely get. Losing money is a horrible situation. I lost the business. They lost some money. I put 8 years into the company. So it was a really tough time. And I almost felt
How do you rebuild yourself from that?
I felt like my world was crumbling. I mean, it was tough. It really, really was. But man, I tell you one thing. When you come back from the failure publicly, like I have, you become indestructible. What's the worst that can happen to me now in business? I've had my name dragged through the dirt, and I've rebuilt an 8-figure business in 3 years in a sector that I knew nothing about. I pioneered the marketplace. I invented the marketplace and the products. And against all of the haters, all of the adversity, I'm back in the game and very successful. Because the traits that I had and the knowledge that I acquired wasn't gone. Temporarily, the vans and the offices and the people were gone, but the skills that got me there in the first place weren't. And all it did was make me stronger. And I genuinely bought my own hype. I was getting too cocky. I thought everything I touched turned to gold. And I have a couple of billionaire mentors now. And one of them said to me, "Oh, you did?" Because when you speak to somebody that's like, I don't know, at a very low level in their career or in business, they think that losing 2 million's like, 10 fucking billion. You speak to a billionaire about losing 2 million, they say, okay, just move on. It's like, it's such this is like, one person's view of it, it's catastrophic. Yeah. A billionaire's view of it is, of course that's going to happen. You're trying to make 100 million. Of course that's going to happen along the way. What are you talking about? Don't sweat it. Just
They've a
carry on.
more abundant mindset. Of course they do.
It's just, the decisions become, much, much easier for them to make. And he said, Joseph, you bought your own hype. So to any young man watching this, I love ego. You need ego. Ego drives you forward, but don't let it fool you into thinking you're better than you are. Now, everything I touched turned to gold. So, whatever I did in my 20s, Apprentice, books, awards, Forbes, I just couldn't lose. I was launching these cities. They were successful, making millions in sales. And I just thought that I was the man. But then things went wrong and I was humbled. Yeah, and the universe taught me a lesson. I mean, they probably said, you know what, this guy's getting too cocky. He needs knocking down a level. Again, I think the universe gave me a right hook to the jaw and sent me back down on my backside. And they wanted to see whether I had what it took to get back up again. And I did. I had what it took to get back up. But it was tough. I'm not going to lie, But the fact is, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and cry about it, or are you going to get back up and prove and show the world who you are? Remember, success isn't guaranteed and failure isn't final.
I believe that. When it comes to you getting back up, you said you relied on a few key skills that hadn't been stripped away from you.
Yeah.
What do you think the most important among those were?
The best skills that I could ever ask for were the sales and marketing skills that I acquired. Because they're what make money. Yeah. They are what make money. If you can sell and you can market yourself, you're indestructible. I will always be able to create millions and millions of pounds at this level, no matter what happens to me. If I lost it all again tomorrow, I'll be back this time I'll be back within a week, right? But it's the sales and marketing skills. Because if you can get to a market and you've got something to sell, that's alchemy. Yeah, we're making gold straight away.
Yeah, it's a deadly combo. I've mentioned Twitter and I've mentioned Lord Sugar already. There's a tweet of his where he tweeted that you'd started coaching businesses, but obviously Impra had ultimately failed in his eyes.
Yeah.
What did that feel like when you saw somebody that you look up to say that?
A real kick in the teeth and a real motivator. Because that period was tough, right? Because that week when I saw that, I was a bit depressed, couldn't get out of bed really. I was in my apartment. I didn't really want to show my face. Every time I put my phone on, it was like notifications of abuse on articles and stuff. I was like, man, this is rough. And I saw that and I thought, damn, he's publicly mocking me. I didn't care about the papers, but I care about what he thought. And I thought, right, I'm going to show you. And so I jumped out of bed. And the anger and the fire that created probably is still running through my veins now. You want unlimited, untapped energy? Get mad. Motivation isn't always positive, right? Sometimes you've got a point to prove. People say, oh, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Yes, you do. Because sometimes it's wanting to prove them wrong that is the fuel that's going to get you up, not just proving you right. I want to prove people wrong and I want to prove myself right. So it's the best thing I could have ever done for me. So thank you, Lord Sugar. That was another gift you gave me. Whether you meant to or you didn't, you gave me a gift.
If you're proving that to him, is there anything that you're still proving to yourself?
Absolutely. My goals are so big that I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Impra was a bump in the road. It was a shortcut. Impra was a bump in the road, one that shouldn't have happened. I should have been much further on. That business I built was an incredible company. No one's ever done it in construction. It should have been a successful exit. And unfortunately, it wasn't. And I should have had that. Now, you should go online and type in and say, Joseph sold Impra for 50 million at 30 years of age, not with what happened. It cost me a lot of time. Yeah. And this is a game of time. Let me stress to every young man, I'm 34 years of age, I'm still young, right? But I'm no 20-year-old, I'm no teenager, okay? You have to play the game of time. And I was in early at 22. You could go earlier than that, but I was in early, right? And by the time I was 25, 26, I was successful, I was doing well. And I could have come out of that with a big exit, and I didn't, and it's cost me the time. And we don't get that back. Yes, you can take the learnings forward, but if you can take the resources forward with the learnings, that puts you in a much, much stronger position. I am going to be a billionaire, 100, but I'm nowhere near there yet. So I've got a big, big ladder to climb. And that's what I'm chasing. It's what I'm chasing every day. It's what gets me up. It's what I do. Or, I make enough money to live a very, very good life, right? I could not have to come to work every day, but I choose to because I am chasing the next level. It's not necessarily the next level of earning. The reason I want to get to a billionaire is just to prove that I can do it. I don't care about £1 billion. £1 billion is great, but from a personal point of view, once you've hit 100 million, you don't really need any more than that. Yeah, $1 billion becomes excess. I mean, the reason I want to do $1 billion is just because I know I can do it. Number one, living my full potential, and number two is I genuinely want to help people. One of the things you may see from me is that I'm all about me, but in actual fact, I am all about everybody else. My businesses are designed to create jobs for other people. I want to look after people. We treat our guys well. We pay very well. We have a great organization. I want to look after my family. I take care of my friends. I take care of it. If anybody needs me, I'm the guy to call. If shit hits the fan, I'm the guy to call. I'm the guy that will go above and beyond to help the people that I care about. And I want to help so many people. So many people.
It's interesting that's a value of yours. And I think some of that you could look back to how you were as a child, what you were exposed to, and the fact that your mother was able to be that supportive figure in the absence of your dad. You can see why you as a man are almost taking on some of that mantle too.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to step up to the plate because as a man, you have to take care of those. You go back to when we lived in the woods. Yeah, let's take the Amazon forest, the tribe. Everybody's got a part to play, but the men go out and hunt. The women don't go out and hunt, okay? And the men go out and hunt. They go and get the kill, bring back the food, and that food takes care of the old, the young, the sick, the women. And I see a man's job as being the hunter and going out and capturing the kill and bringing it back for the tribe to eat, because everybody's got to eat. If there were no hunters, then no one's going to eat. And CEOs, entrepreneurs, you're hunters. You're the main man that's got to feed the tribe. And I do think, my uncle had a massive impact because he would do so much for us that I remember how good I felt having the things that he did. And I remember how he must have felt being able to do those things. And that feeling, Denzel Washington says the most selfish thing you can do is help other people. because that feeling is worth more than anything, man. When you give somebody something that they could never have had, that's the best feeling that money can buy for sure.
Yeah, money's a funny thing. I saw a quote this morning. I wrote it down because I knew we were going to be talking this afternoon. It's from Nassim Taleb, and he said the
Yeah,
world is split between those who don't know how to start making money and those who don't know when to stop. I'm
yeah,
not sure what I think about it because you're definitely in the camp of you know how to make money,
yeah.
but do you know when to stop? It's a difficult balance to strike.
I think only stop if you care about yourself. Don't stop if you want to help others. Because the more that you can make, the more that you can help. Branson said about making a billion and in talking about charity. If I get a million, I can help a million people. If I get a billion, I can help a billion people. So as long as the motivation is I'm not greedy. I don't want the money for me. Yeah, I love a private jet and a super yacht and to have the stuff that money could buy. I do want those things. I do like those material things. I think they're incredible. I think they're great and I want to experience them. But in actual fact, the surplus money, the excess, will go to helping other people and doing great things. Imagine being able to fly around the world, okay, and go and build schools and whatever, services, emergency services, and hospitals, and provide water for all of these places that don't have these things. To provide education, that's got to be an incredible feeling to be able to do that. You go and help a homeless guy on the street. That's a good feeling. You go and do that across the globe. That's got to be, 1,000 times that feeling, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where using ego as a positive driver is really important. Like, I'm going to be the guy, my shoulders are broad enough to carry the
Yeah,
load. I'm going to build, I'm going to scale, and I'm going to use this money for good. And one of my favorite quotes that we say on the podcast a lot is a rising tide raises all ships.
yeah,
So if you are the rising tide with this wealth generation, this job creation, and this ability to almost trickle down to support those around you, I think that's a really positive trait and something to work towards.
yeah, definitely. Absolutely, buddy. Agree with that.
Well, Joseph, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot about your story. I think the listeners will have learned a tremendous amount about mindset and business as well. If they
Good.
want to continue the conversation, where should they head towards?
Instagram, actually YouTube at Mr. Joseph Valente. Go watch Unfinished Business. This is my documentary. It's documenting the comeback, and it will also be documenting the road to a billion. We're on 20 episodes. We've been doing it for 20 weeks. There'll be 10 years worth of episodes in 10 years.
You're committed to the project. That's beautiful, Joseph. That'll be linked in the show notes. Thank you to you, and thank you to the listener as well. We'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.